Is it a money pit or a great investment? We get some different takes on this on today's podcast.
Anna and Walter are young, single, and in love. They've got good jobs, a magnificent new home that they bought for a song. Who says they can't have it all?
It's gonna be fun fixing it up. You'll see.
This is the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast. On this episode, Mike Reilly, Travis Reilly, and Michael Dietlin discuss the major decision of buying a home. How does a person make sure it's a good investment? What are all the things you should consider when buying? We discuss this and much more on today's episode. But first, a word from our sponsor.
If you've been listening to this podcast, then you understand or should understand the pitfalls of investing in Cleveland real estate. Say you're looking for an investment property to rent, and these are the things that could happen and often do. You overpay for a house, and it's in the ghetto. Then you find that it's a money pit with endless surprise repairs. Your hapless property manager, who may be the brother-in-law of the realtor, gets a tenant who after 3 months stops paying the rent. Then the toilet explodes, and you have nobody to repair it because, guess what? The property manager is not answering the phone. Yep, that's the ugly side of the Cleveland real estate market. But we have a solution. Buy one of our properties. It's been inspected. It's been vetted. It's in a rock-solid part of town. It comes with a Gold Star tenant paying top dollar rent, and we manage it. Call us at 216-371-8160 if you're interested. All right, and we are back with part 3. And with us, we've got 2 people, Travis Reilly and his partner, Michael Dietlin. Both are renting and thinking about buying a house. So good afternoon, guys. It's Friday. I know you're all ready to go home or do something else other than this. So how you doing, Michael?
I am doing all right, Mike. Doing all right. It's Friday. We made it through another week, another excellent week at Reilley Properties.
And Travis?
Hello there. Thanks for having me again. And same here, TGIF.
All right. All right. Now, Travis, let me start out with you. You've read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You've been working with the company, Reilley Properties. Where are you on, what's your thoughts on buying a property to own for yourself and with Michael, and also maybe sublet the first floor? What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that it seems like the best course of action, but emotionally, I'm still a little overwhelmed by the idea. So I just need to kind of take that emotional mindset and just kind of put it in the back seat for a sec so Michael and I can start figuring this out.
What overwhelms you about that?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is the kind of like emergency repairs, like the big bad ones of things like HVAC kind of repairs, stuff that can really, really add up. Just to think about it can be a little overwhelming.
All right. So when you think
about capital expense,
right, and you've seen the capital expense, you know what the general expenses are. So,
and I know what kind of emergencies could happen too.
Right. So what do you do about that? All right, how do you overcome that?
I guess the first thought is to, just do your best to solve the problem when it comes up, but then also have the insight to do kind of preventative maintenance on those big things, and be aware that that's just part of the process for owning a house, is to keep it well maintained, to spot problems before they get any bad.
Well, when you buy a house, it's like buying a car, obviously on a bigger scale, and this is where you got to kick the tires, and this is where you have to do your due diligence. So obviously when you buy a house, you're going to be checking the capital stuff that could come down the line, the furnace, the HVAC, the roof, the electrical system, the plumbing. So this is where you're working with, our company, because that's what we do before we buy a property. We're actually x-raying it to see, all right, now what exactly is the status of all those big ticket capital expenses. So you always know going in what you have to do. And it's good that you're cautious, but you don't want to be overly cautious. It's a pretty simple matter of just identifying what you're getting into before you buy it. Where are you on this property acquisition, Michael?
So I think the first thing is it kind of struck me. I'm glad we started by renting together. I think that was a good first move, but I don't necessarily love the idea that I'm paying somebody else's mortgage. And that's a big motivating factor to me, that I'm paying money every month and I am never going to see that money again. That money is gone forever.
Right. But on the other hand, let me just interrupt. You are paying the bank, but on the other hand, I'm with you. I agree with your sentiment.
I mean, I'm paying the bank, I'm paying the person that I'm renting from, but at the same time, I am not building any wealth off of this.
Right.
We are not getting anything. Like if we buy a house, at the end of the day, we own a house. We can sell that house. We can take that money and put it somewhere else. It's an investment. And then you have a tangible thing, versus renting, where you pay every month to exist in a space. And then when you're done renting, you have nothing.
That's right.
So that's my motivation to wanting to purchase a property. And after talking with Travis, it looks like that's where we want to be moving. And then I think the next kind of step for us was like, how are we going to pay for it? So right now, I think the plan is get a duplex or a multifamily home, or one of these homes that are split up into multiple. So you can get an extra set of income. We can rent to somebody who needs somewhere to stay, or we can Airbnb it out. And then we can use that money to pay off the mortgage. And the money that was going towards the mortgage can go towards things like student debt, or a repair fund for when the house breaks down, or something else, other costs that exist in life.
Well, one of the things that I'm glad to hear from both of you is that you're just not jumping into it, because that's what people did 15 years ago. In 2005, 2006, 2007, leading up to the crash of 2008. I mean, the general thinking is you're stupid if you don't own a house. Why rent when you can own a house and you can start creating wealth? But what people learned, to their horror, in 2009 and 2010 and 2011, they bought a house, but they bought at the top of the bubble. So when the music stopped and you're playing musical chairs, there they were, stuck with a house that suddenly had plummeted in value. And now it was a ball and chain. And so all that talk about the value of owning a house and the beginning of creation of wealth got turned upside down. We're now getting to a point where property prices have stabilized. People are now looking back at property ownership as the beginnings of creating wealth. But it's not open and shut that, okay, I'm tired of giving the landlord my money, I'm not creating any wealth. Well, on the other hand, like you and I talked a couple months ago about leasing a car versus buying a car. Hey, you lease a car, you don't have to worry about the repairs, short of, you blow out a tire. So you get 3 years where you're basically renting a car, but you don't have to worry about, all of a sudden getting hit with a $2,000 transmission bill. So there's always pluses and minuses. And I think the most important thing of this conversation with the, that we're having, the three of us, is that it's not, buying a house doesn't mean you're printing money or the streets are paved in gold. It's, I think on balance for both of you, it's a smart move if you can get it on the duplex with the Airbnb, because I was doing the numbers with Mike Ferrante in the earlier part, and we were basically saying, all right, well, listen, right now you're spending what, $1,100 a month?
About, yeah.
Okay, so you're spending $1,100. Well, you could buy a house for $230,000, and your mortgage payment would be $1,400. Okay, and that's a fixed up house. That's a nice house.
Right.
Or you could buy a house for 175, and these are duplexes that you need a lot of work to put into it. But it may be you put in 50,000 or 40,000, new heating system, whatever. And now you've got a house that's probably worth, after what you put into it, maybe in the 240s, 250s, but you have a mortgage payment that's less. But without me taking over this conversation, let me just, before I throw it back to you guys, the most important thing for first-time home buyers is having that team of experts advising you, not a realtor. Do not use a realtor as your go-to person for creating wealth. This is where you guys both have an advantage because you're in the company, and you know how the property business works, and you're also surrounded by people who know houses inside and out, not just the repairs, but also managing the money. So you're in a good position to take advantage of that and put yourself into a select class of first-time buyers. I'm going to kick it over to you, Travis, then we'll go to Michael. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of time for me to put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, and see if what I've learned throughout my time working here can be put of use in this way.
Okay.
In terms of inspecting potential properties, to see if we're buying a lemon or not.
Let's just assume you bought a good house. In fact, you will buy a good house because you've got Mike Ferrante and the realtor. You've got obviously your dad here who's knows the contracting business. You've got all the top senior foremen, David, Bob, Eric. You've got Brooke, the money man. So your team's already in place, including the insurance company, et cetera. So let's just assume that you bought a rock solid, good house as your first property. Do you think you would enjoy fixing up your house?
Yeah.
Or do you just want to play D&D on the weekends?
No, I mean, as you know, my side of the business is more on kind of getting it ready for people to move in. So I enjoy that process of, making it look nice, staging it. So that's something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Michael, jump over to you.
Well, Travis, just to say that's something you're very good at, and I really appreciate it. And you've been itching to do some improvements to our current living situation. I've had to hold you back on a couple of times when you're like, I just really want to get at this garden. And I'm like, Travis, we're never gonna we're gonna get nothing out of this. Hold that off. Put it in a garden fund for when we get a house. And I think there's definitely something to being able to take ownership over where you live. I think there is a level of satisfaction that comes innately with bettering your situation. Putting in the countertops you like, getting better hardware for the kitchen, fixing up the siding, repainting the house, all of the things that make it more your house. But I mean, I think the flip side of that is you also want to make sure that whatever you do, unless you're sure that this is your forever home, keeps the house marketable. You don't want to paint it garish purple if that is not going to be a color that sells in the future, depending on how long you plan on staying at a place. But I think financially, one of the big benefits of buying a house is if you do it right and you're renting and you're subletting it and Airbnb-ing it, that does free up a little bit of wealth that you can put towards putting down other costs in your life.
Absolutely.
I remember having a conversation with you, Mike, where you said, what are you guys paying in rent? Like $1,000 a month? Well, you would get that back. If you have a renter, you would get that back. And if you did it right, you would get more money out of that.
Yeah, you would. Because an Airbnb setup, which Travis excels at along with Lindsay, a 2-bedroom Airbnb is going to probably net around 2,500 gross revenues.
Yeah.
A month. And you're already spending 1,000 on rent. So, you're going to be, first of all, you're not going to have to pay that 1,000
right
anymore. You'd have to pay the mortgage, and let's just use a round figure of 1,500. So you're going to end up net plus 1,000. And that doesn't even talk about the tax ramifications, because now that you're running an Airbnb, all the fix-up costs are put against, that revenue coming in. So I think one thing I keep preaching this to customers on the contracting side, especially, is, don't look at everything you do to your house as something like, is this going to add to the value of the house? It's, there's probably 40% of what you do to your house just because you want to do it because you enjoy it, not because you're looking to make money off maybe putting 6 rose bushes in instead of, 1.
Right.
So there is nothing like, if you really enjoy living in a house, fixing up a house, there's nothing more enjoyable than raking the leaves in the fall on your own property. I know Brooke loves doing that. It's just such a relaxing, time for him. But on the other hand, if you're a person out there who does a lot of traveling, who's not home a lot, I would actually counsel not buying a house. I would just, because you don't even know if you're going to be living there full time. You may find that you take a job in another city. And if you're doing a lot of traveling and the last thing you want to do is cut the grass on Saturday when you're back from traveling, then really you're the person that, if you want to invest money, save money, make money, invest in the market, or buy T-bills or bonds or whatever. But don't get into real estate. You just don't have the time for it. So, okay, over to you, Travis. Throw us. We're going to go around.
Yeah, and that's
time.
Well, no, that's what we've noticed a lot with when we've had vacant properties, right? Is the ones that are the stink bombs of the neighborhood are people, maybe like you're saying, who aren't there a lot. They kind of just dove into something that they don't really know what the ramifications are. So they just kind of like, oh, well, I got other stuff to do. I'll just leave it sitting there. So,
well, that's not exactly true. Most of the stink bomb houses we see, the vacant houses, those are more, they fall into 2 camps. One is an estate sale where the owner died, they lived there for a long time, and really it's got all tied up in probate. And that's what happened with Gloria O property. She died, we're managing her properties, and she really didn't have the will set up. And, we're still managing the property, but her family's, in DC, and they're trying to figure out, who's in charge. So that is what happens a lot of times with these stink bomb homes. The other category is the person that wants to play a real estate mogul, and they buy a property. They're going to create an LLC. I got this property. I'm into real estate. I'm going to be fixing and flipping and stuff like that. And they don't know what they're doing. So they get a big loan, which includes money to fix it up. And then guess what? They're about a third of the way through and they just walk away. They literally walk away and they stick the bank with the loan. And now that house sits there for months with the lawn uncut. So there are a lot of, I keep thinking of the visual of climbing Mount Everest. And a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of dead people up there in Everest, or, say there's a pile up, a car accident on the freeway, and you just see all these cars just littered there. There are a lot of people that lose their shirt in real estate. That's not going to happen to both of you because that's your primary residence. And that's a great first introduction to real estate is, even if it doesn't work out, well, you still have a house. You still had to pay rent anyways. So even if you don't make $2,500 every month, on the Airbnb side, you're still paying only $400 more than you already were.
If you have any questions for us or topics you want to discuss or even just want to say hi, you can email us at theclevelandrealestateinvestor@gmail.com.
Michael, comments?
Yeah, well, I would say that's true. And like you were saying earlier, whether or not you should buy definitely depends on your situation. When Travis and I were long distance, it didn't really make sense because neither of us knew where we were going to end up. And both of us kind of knew that we weren't going to be in the living situation we were at for a long time. So buying a house kind of didn't make sense. And so you don't want to just buy a house like you're saying, Mike, because, oh, well, then I'll get wealth. Oh, I'll be a mogul. Oh, I'll rent out all of it. And unless you know what you're doing, unless you're working with the Reilley properties or something, it's really easy to get burned because you're not there. Travis was talking about something that he noticed. And I think one of the difference between Airbnbs that are well taken care of and some of the Airbnbs that I've been to where I'm kind of like on the fence about it is how frequently the people that own it look at it, how frequently they touch it. Like I know at Reilley Properties, Lindsay does home inspections all the time. We have crews going through all of these properties and we really go over it. But the people who are like, I own it, but I've really not been there since I bought the place. Those are the places where they kind of fall apart a little bit more because there isn't that sense of ownership or pride that you get when you own a home and you're more intimately involved in it. At least from my experience, that home ownership, I'm raking the leaves of my yard. I'm making my place look nice. I'm setting up this lighting because I want to see it. And it's less about adding value to your home, which these things do. And it's more about creating an environment that you want to enjoy yourself in. And the chances are, if you enjoy yourself in that environment, other people will.
Well, that's a good point. I think whenever you see failure, like restaurant goes out of business, businesses go out of business, a marriage falls apart, real estate, investment, flops, tanks.
Yeah.
It's always important to understand why did that happen? For example, the classic case of somebody who worked at a paint company. I've had a lot of this happen with me, for people that don't know it. I mean, our main parent company is Reilley Painting and Contracting. And I started that in my early 20s. And, I've had a lot of people working in the company, and a good percentage of them saw me driving an Audi, said, well, if I can do that, he's just going out and getting the jobs, selling the jobs, and then getting some people to work for him. And all he does is sit back and count the money. I'm sorry, that's not how it works. Okay.
If it was that easy, everyone would do it.
Exactly. But the reality is 50% of businesses that are started fail. But why do they fail? Why do those people that left the company to start their own business, why do they fail? Well, they undercharge. They don't know how to hire. They don't know how to organize. They don't know how to bookkeep. They don't, I mean, these are all the aspects of why they failed. And the same thing goes with real estate. People just, when you tell people I'm in real estate, they look at you like you're a millionaire. It's not like when you say, oh, I'm a garbage collector. The reality is the trash haulers who have these private trash business. Those guys are printing money because nobody wants to do it. And they're, they found the niche they're in and they're making a lot of money, but it sure doesn't sound sexy. I'm a garbage collector. I mean, we have a gutter cleaning business that I started right when I was in college and out of college. And we were making a fortune, for the couple of weeks in the fall when we were cleaning gutters. And guess what? My wife, Travis's mom, her parents were my gutter cleaning customers. So imagine my in-laws telling their friends that their daughter is going to get married to the guy who's cleaning their gutters. That doesn't sound real appealing. So real estate, and I'll get off my high horse and end this sermon, but real estate, everybody, when you say those words, they think about it's a lucrative business. And it is not necessarily so. Travis, you want to jump in?
Yeah, because I know just how much involved it can be. I've kind of been on the front end of it. So I can see why in theory it would be like nothing, but it's a sexy job. But the reality is it can be a lot of work, a lot of different aspects that, correlate with each other, can just add up into all the work that you have to do to make a house livable.
Yeah. Well, you've been watching that from, back of the stage, for the last 10 years, but Michael, you're kind of new to this stage. So as a newbie, what are your observations, the real estate business?
Well, I mean, I think it's exactly like you said. It's all well and good on paper. Buying a house makes a lot of sense. You get a renter, you pay for it, but then in actuality, you run into the things like you have to replace a fridge broke down. Right now, we're in a conversation with our landlord that our dishwasher isn't working. And like, we've been without a dishwasher for a few weeks, and that, and like how to plan for these eventualities. I think that circling back kind of comes to your having a team of advisors, especially when you're first buying a house. You want somebody that'll look at the foundation and tell you if it's rotted. You want somebody that'll be able to like say, hey, this is a good location or not, if you're not really in the area. You want somebody that'll be able to, like, hey, you got to replace this, this, and this, and this is kind of what it'll cost you. So you can see the hidden costs that'll come with buying any house that isn't fresh off the market. And even then, if it's fresh off the market, nobody's lived in it. You don't know. Maybe the plumbing doesn't work. Maybe you have lighting fixture issues. These are all things that you can't really anticipate.
Well, you can because you follow the golden rule. Shit always happens. Something's going to break. So
you just got to expect the unexpected.
You can count on it. And so we're setting your schedule today. We're only booking you out 75% of next week because we know something's going to come up. And Travis knows this too. And everybody in the organization knows that. But so that let's go back to the model. Let's say, everything's working out. You've got a couple of people coming in, visiting nurses, whatever. I got to watch the whole dogs. And that's the other thing you got to watch for, the right tenants coming in, the short-term tenants. But let's just say everything's rolling along. Well, you want to make sure that you're always taking a portion of that rent coming in and putting it into another account. And that account is for the shit that will happen. The dishwasher. Plus, And here's another thing where another aspect of this business where you are really in a good place because you know where to get the used stuff, right, Travis? The used appliances.
Yeah.
And you can look at a house that's scaring away other people because they're looking at a crack in the foundation. And you get Dave out there and you'll say, that's nothing, but it's just scaring away people. Or you see a house that's got dirty windows and overgrown landscaping. And believe me, the curb appeal is terrible. That's the house for you, as long as it's not in the hood.
Yeah. I think that's something I've definitely appreciated more is, where is it located? Like what kind of neighborhood? Because that's probably one of the things you have no control over. I mean, a lot of the other things you can fix and you can clean up, but for that, it's just like, how much can you change a neighborhood like that? And it kind of reminds me of the quote actually from the owner of McDonald's company said, where people were he was asking people like, oh, well, do you know what kind of business I'm in? And they're like, oh yeah, like you're in the food business, obviously. He's like, no, my business is real estate, because he apparently is very selective about the locations he picked for his McDonald's, because he knew they were the best spots.
Right. Exactly.
So, and he knew that if he had to sell maybe a location, that would be, a hot place to sell because it's such a major kind of traffic area.
Well, there's no question, and I know listeners out there who have experienced what I experienced and what we experience as a company, where you buy that house, our house that we've been in for 39 years, that was a foreclosure. And it was, we have pictures of the house, what it looked like. It had been vacant for like 3-4 months. It just needed total repainting on the inside and whatever. But guess what? I'm in the contracting business. So I was able to buy this house that had 4 bedrooms and 3 full baths, 2 half baths, 2 fireplaces in a great neighborhood of Forest Hill. And within 3 weeks, we washed the windows, we completely repainted the inside of the house, we fixed it up, we did some landscaping cleanup, and then we moved in, and we haven't looked back. And that sense of ownership, and just to drive up to your house, or when you're raking the leaves and look at it and say, I own this. I never forget feeling that, 39 years ago. Wow, this is my house. I own this house. And I don't think you ever want to make a decision buying a house where you say, oh, I should be buying a house. Take the should word out and be cautious about using that. There has to be a deeper level of thinking there, because but not, oh, I'm a certain age, so I should get married. I'm at a certain age, and maybe I should get a job where I wear a white shirt and a tie.
Yeah.
That's always where the traps come in, that conventional thinking. But thinking outside the box, buying a duplex, renting out the first floor, looking for some estate sale where the furniture is already there, right, Travis? You could buy the house and the furniture. Yeah. And you can use that for the first floor. So, hey, I'm kind of repeating what Mike Ferrante and I were talking about earlier. So final thoughts. I'm going to kick it over to Michael and then back to you, Travis.
Well, I think the great Dietlin fount of wisdom from my parents, and my aunt, the couple of things that I got on Home Own It is she was always ahead of the curve. My aunt was. And so like the neighborhood and you've seen her house, it's gorgeous. But when she bought the house, it was on the cusp of a neighborhood that you didn't really want to be on before it got gentrified, before it got renovated, before the nicer buildings moved in. And now she's like literally a half a block from the 606 in Chicago. And she has one of the people would kill to have her kind of location, to have her kind of house that she's just happily sitting in, because she knew she was in Chicago long enough to know when the neighborhoods were changing. She knew ahead of time, like, all right, this location might not be good. The curb appeal isn't great yet, but it will be, and I can tell, and I know. And she was right. And so this is like her pride and joy now. And my parents said, and this is their part, is when you pay off, as long as you have debt, as soon as you pay off one type of debt, you don't think I've got that money back. You think, where can I put this money to invest in myself?
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
So when we get the $1,000 back, when we get our rent back, we aren't getting rent back. I still have student loans out. We have the can we swear on this podcast?
Sure.
Yeah, we have the shit fund. Something has happened and we now need to replace something fund that we need to have. And so the money is, and then when we pay off that stuff, that's probably going to be like stock investments or something. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. But like you don't get the money back. You invest it.
Well, you invest it for the long haul too. I mean, that's the important thing. Go ahead, Travis. Final thoughts.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us. I think
also that. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think my final thought is just more on a personal level, is for me to just kind of push through this fear of the unknown. Because on the one hand, I know a lot, but on the other hand, I don't know anything because I haven't really witnessed it firsthand with my own money in terms of undergoing this venture. But I just need to, like I said before, put that fear kind of in the back seat. It's not the main driver. I'm the main driver. Michael's the main driver. And just base our decisions off of as much logic as we can and not any fear.
Right. Well, I'll end on that note, which is you're lucky, both of you, because you're in a company that does this for a living. So you've got a lot of safety nets under you. And this is a great opportunity to get into something which for most people could be, a little bit of a risk, unless it's that classic couple that get married and then they buy the starter home and they're both working, and it's kind of a no-brainer. A lot of people have done it, and you are miles ahead of where most people are when they buy their first house, and you're surrounded by experts in different fields in that kind of business. So, all right, it is Friday, and you guys are playing D&D tomorrow, right? Big D&D day.
Yeah, we're going to be meeting with our friends, and we're going to be exploring Dungeons and Dragons.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll leave on that note. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have
Mike.
a good weekend. Okay. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast. You can find all our episodes at www.reilly-properties.com, or you can find us on your favorite streaming services like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and more.